it is not. Cinema Classics is sponsored by WCBE 90.5 FM, Columbus, Ohio, and is produced by John DeSando and Johnny DiLoretto. Listen to shows online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Kevin Carr.
And thank you, Kevin, for sitting in for Johnny.
Well, thank you. I am proud to do so.
All right, and this is Cinema Classics.
All right.
Do you know the name of the new Jordan Peele movie?
Nope.
Yeah, I knew you. Yeah, you're perfect.
Well, it's a good thing I didn't ask you what the name of his first movie was.
Oh, get out.
Okay, I'll be back.
All right, so we are interested in, I think, this Wunderkind, new director who's had 3 really interesting movies.
I don't know if you could call him a new director. I mean, it's 3 movies over 5 years.
I know, yeah.
6 years, something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I see he was such a small oof for making movies, but then he's got this TV experience.
Well, I mean, let's just go all the way back to the beginning of Peele's career. I mean, he's a comedy guy. That's where he cut his teeth. I mean, he obviously everyone recognized him from Key and Peele, but he did a lot of, comedy and bit parts. He was player in a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
And it seems, for some people, it seems really odd that a comedian would then do these very heavy think pieces with, very dark concepts and ideas, and ultimately doing horror movies. But if you've known enough comedians, that is not a big stretch.
Oh, right, yes. Look at Robin Williams. I mean.
Oh, yeah. Well, he had the dramatic acting chops.
Yeah.
But you look, if you ever spend it's depressing to spend time with comedians because they are very dark and depressing people. They live in the dark side in a lot of ways.
That's true. Key and Peele. I think I saw a few of those shows.
Sure.
I was really impressed with how in your face they were with their racial references.
Well, very edgy. I mean, it's like anything. You can get away with a lot more when you're talking about your own race. Is the best way to do it. And so you've got 2 of them who are very, just wickedly smart comedians.
Yes.
Putting together some really good stuff, and they layer it too. It's not just the jokes not right on top.
Yeah. There's
jokes layered in there. Chappelle would do that when Dave Chappelle did the Chappelle Show.
Okay.
It's not just Benny Hill, where it's just a sex joke or something.
Well, I remember one, I think it was one of the first ones, where I think it was Key was playing a chef.
Okay.
And then Peele was one of the 3 recruits or the new chefs. Mm-hmm. And he was dressing him down, saying things like, your recipe is out of this world. It should be eaten by people who are out of this world. So he would go from looking like it was actually praise and slamming it. I thought it was a brilliant piece. And Peele just kind of stood there and took it. He said, "Chef, is that a compliment or not?"
Yeah.
But anyway, so I thought that their comedy was bright, and they just moved to it. So, all right, we had, I mean, a slew of TV, Kev, for him. And then we get Out.
Yeah.
What happened with that? How do you assess that?
Well, like I said, it's somebody who's always played with serious topics. A lot of people are very dismissive of comedy. They think comedy is just pratfalls and Keystone Cops and that kind of stuff. But and some comedy absolutely is. There is still the very lowbrow comedy that doesn't raise itself in anything. But really good comedy, especially something that's not, like Saturday Night Live can have some great comedy, but it's reactionary. They got to write it in a week. South Park used to be like that. Okay. It was very reactionary. And so you couldn't really be clever about doing things. But you can really weave some interesting commentary and messaging into the comedy, and the fact that you're laughing kind of dulls your nerves to you getting, even if you or a group of people is being specifically criticized. And so he played around with that. It makes sense when you look at his comedy that he would have a layered story like in Get Out, and there's also a huge connection between comedy and horror. So, and in the black community, horror's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, and not everyone loves it, but you know, there's a lot of black, African American based horror that's out there, and he just kind of leaned into that, and I wouldn't say that his stuff in Get Out was terribly subtle. I mean, it's pretty obvious what he's doing in that movie.
Twilight Zone type stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see where it's going.
Well, you know where his message is. Yeah, it's right in front.
He was very disappointed that people didn't see it as a horror film.
Yeah.
Because there was so much social commentary in it, and it was light as far as horror goes. So it kind of depressed him sometimes to think that they didn't get it, that it was a horror film.
Well, Well, I think that it's weird. The audience reaction to what people say is very different. I mean, it was absolutely built as a horror movie.
Yeah, I know.
And when you watch it, it has all the horror elements. I mean, you got Lil Rel in there doing kind of crazy things, and he's the comic relief of it. But I mean, there are sequences in that movie that are chilling when you are I'm talking about stuff like George Romero's The Crazies has this moment where I think it's in his original version where you know something's going to happen. There's murders, and you know it's happening, and the person's just waiting for it to happen, and that's unnerving. And he sets it up in that sort of way where you know unpleasant things are going to be happening to this character, and even though it's not a gore fest, the idea of this is what's going to happen, and this has happened to people before, that gets under your skin.
Well, and it's not Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
No.
And you do feel that tension, and I believe that part of his purpose was to show you the tension. A black man in a white community, a black man coming with his white girlfriend, and hasn't even told them that he's black. I mean, all the tension is right there.
Well, there's a brilliant moment at the beginning of the movie where they're driving there, and a police officer stops him and wants his license, and she gets out and defends him.
That's right.
And it plays totally different from the first time you see it to the second time you see it, because the first time you see it, she's defending him and protecting him. But when you realize what goes on in the movie, and I mean, this gives a little bit away. If you haven't watched Get Out yet, Get Out. But you realize she doesn't want a paper trail. She doesn't want any evidence this guy existed in this, and a police record would do that. And so it was a very self-serving thing for her to do. And that's the neat thing that you weave in there, and where it's stuff that you watch it a second time and it's a different movie.
And when you look at the topic of the outsider, and you look at him carry that through to Nope, where we clearly have outsiders who are now aliens.
Yeah.
And you have him consistent. Now, what about us, though?
Well, see, what's interesting is, like I said, with Get Out, he had a lot packed in there, but it was really easy to decode.
I think so,
decode.
Yes.
I mean, we know what it's about. It's cultural appropriations and race issues. Us is way more complex, and it is far more. And it's again, and Us is much more of a traditional horror story. I mean, it essentially is a home invasion type movie.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to it, and it is packed deeper. You really have to unravel Us to even start to think about it. I mean, I don't even know if I know everything that movie's about, because it's tightly written and it turns on a dime where you think it's one thing and then it turns into something else.
Well, I think the idea of the doppelganger characters out there, maybe your opposite, is a really brilliant idea.
Oh yeah.
And it works in that sense, but you are right. I don't know anybody who will tell you that Us is easy.
Yeah. And that's why I loved it. That's why I actually think Us is a better movie.
Good.
I mean, that's no flies on Get Out, but that's why I liked Us probably the best of the three.
And Nope.
That's another
What do you
story.
think? Let me ask you this, Kev. Okay. Is he M. Night Shyamalan?
I don't like to do that. I mean, there are people out there constantly. Is he the greatest director of all time? Has anyone had 3 #1 hits in a row? Yes, that's happened before, so we can put that to bed. I mean, that happened with Michael Bay, for crying out loud. So if we're going to use that as your benchmark, you've lost your argument there. That's nothing wrong with Jordan Peele. I think he happened to capitalize after a big TV show. He did a really good movie out of the gate. He did not start off doing these tiny little independent films. Like M. Night Shyamalan did that. He started doing he didn't cut his teeth with a TV series that then allowed him to and it's his own trajectory. But I mean, you're allowed to, I didn't think Nope was great. But you're allowed to have a stumble.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I know Hollywood is what have you done for me now, but
No, I think he's held up well.
yeah.
And the problem is not everybody can do 3 in a row that are great. And
Well, and I think he was going bigger. I mean, this is bigger budget, and he was going for spectacle.
Right.
And he handled the spectacle
yeah.
well.
Well, Kevin Carr, my director, is pointing to me saying that there are people calling. They don't want us to stop. It's sounding so good to them.
All right.
So what we're gonna have to do is send them to the podcast experience.
Yes.
It's called Double Take. So they can go over there. And otherwise, I'm gonna say, Kev, what do you recommend to people now for Jordan Peele for Nope?
I'm not a huge fan of it, but I know there are some people who do. So it's worth checking out just to understand it.
And for our cinephiliac friends, it's a must-see if you want to understand Jordan Peele. If you want to know who Jordan Peele is,
Sure.
you're going to have to. It's easy to see his 3 films.
Yes.